Hello, y'all. I am fortunate enough today to be here with Grant. Grant, who are you and what are you doing here today?
Well, I appreciate you having me, Ryan. Yeah, so my name is Grant Majors. I'm the CEO of American Rounds. We're an ammunition retail business that is focused on what we call automated retail, AI retail, bringing AI machine concepts into retail spaces.
What is super interesting about what you're doing, it's on the very forefront and cutting edge of technology with something that is so ancient in America, guns, right? Firearms and ammunition. So it's very interesting how what you're doing is catching both of those as they're and like putting them together in such a unique way. How did you kind of get into this? It's not something you're born one day and you're like, I'm gonna do this. There's got to be a journey that led up to that.
Yeah, there was. Prior to this, my partner and I, Lawrence, we were in the hemp space, the CBD space, and it was brought to us actually. The stores were looking to bring new products into their facilities. So in our case, it's mostly grocery stores. And we got approached on the hemp side. And as we started talking to them, they said, hey, we're really not interested. Hemp's great and all we want. It sounds cool, but our customers are wanting ammo. Immediately I said, sure. I said, yeah, we can do ammo. That's not a problem. And that was about 6 months ago. And then we launched as fast as we could. And that's really what got us here. It was completely brought to us and fell in our lap. But interestingly enough, the space for automated retail or AI moving into the retail world was really created. The United States is about 10 years behind a lot of the rest of the world. When you look at China or you look at Asia, you look at Europe, they've been doing automated retail for some time. But in the United States, it was really COVID that kind of kicked it off. So when the shutdowns happened, and employees were let go or businesses closed, there was a push to get staff back. And as everybody knows, it was difficult for a lot of stores and has been, and it still is. The idea of being in automated retail is filling that need. And it also allows these stores, in this case, to bring in products that they normally wouldn't sell.
And so from your perspective as the business leader that you are and where you were at that time, when they came to you with that almost that need or that pain point of their customers, did you already have the solution in your head, or was it they said that and it was, yes, now let's figure out the best way we can deliver this to their customers?
Yeah, no, it really was brought to us. Like I said, we were in the hemp business. We were driving that manufacturing wholesale type business. We produced a lot of finished goods for various customers, and it was brought to us, hey, have you considered these automated retail machines and selling hemp through that, selling finished good product that direction? So it was brought to us because they already had a store customer base lined up that wanted them. So we immediately recognized what a value add that is to the stores, and we jumped right in there, and that's where we started. But then with further conversations as we were going down that path, and we got introduced to more people in the process of buying, the various buyers that we work with, the brokers that we were working with, and we got to know them more. They just said, that's not what we want. Our customers want ammunition in the stores. They want to be able to buy it. And can you do that? And yeah, it was just, and then we just flipped the switch. So it was a little stroke of luck and a lot of work after.
I remember when I was talking to Liddell about it, and he was mentioning the most surprising thing for him was the logistics of supply chain management behind everything that you guys are doing. Was that kind of something you expected, or was that kind of, oh wow, I didn't realize it would have to be this and this?
Yeah, it really was. It for us. I don't think for myself and Lawrence, we were the original two operators for the company. I don't think it was really too much of a challenge for us. With any business, when you're rolling something out, you're considering the scale of it. Obviously, logistical issues become bigger the bigger you get. Those are things that we've been able to just project, work with various groups to improve. And as we grow, we're prepared to handle those things. But the biggest thing when we came into this space, and the number one question we got first and foremost was, is it even legal? Can you sell ammunition in a grocery store? And that was the very first thing I started researching immediately is, can we even do this? And so the answer to the question is absolutely. And about 85% of the states, roughly, a little bit over, you do not
It's kind of cutting you out there. I'm not sure. Is there a, sounds like mosquitoes are in the background.
something chirping.
Try clicking mute and going on mute and then unmuting yourself.
Are we back?
Yeah, what? Now it's perfect.
I have no idea what that was. I thought maybe you had, this is a little early in the year for that, but.
It's like tech. You turn it on and off and somehow it magically works. But you were saying.
Yeah, so as I was saying, you're not required in about 85% of the states in the country to have what's called an FFL license, which you have to for firearm sales, unless you're exporting ammunition in. So we looked at the legality of it. It was okay. We can retail sell ammo in basically the majority of the country. So all the spaces we were looking at, that was clear. We wanted to look at that. Then we had to consider the age verification, which the AI comes into play there. Those are the type of things that we're really most concerned about getting this launched and setting that up, making sure that we meet all the appropriate legal steps and that these machines are functioning so that they meet all the legal requirements. And that was the number one. That was the number one concern getting started. After that, it was pretty much just full steam ahead.
This happening with ammo and you guys leading the charge with that, what other industries do you see this kind of pattern of disruptive retail automation happening with? Are there other industries you see that pattern moving into in the future?
Oh, absolutely. Even with the groups that we're at. So these stores, a lot of these stores that we're currently working with, they're in some smaller towns. So your smaller town grocery stores, and a lot of times the only big competitor that they have there may be a Walmart. And that's what I bring people back to when we talk about ammunition at a grocery store. That's what Walmart does. They sell groceries and they have outdoor section and things like that. And that's what the grocery stores are doing. Well, they want to bring in other products as well. And so they've already talked to us about golf machines. They're talking to us about fishing machines. They're talking to us about other products as well. I've heard recently that one of the machine suppliers, they're working with Modelo, for instance, and they had some machines at the Super Bowl for beer. We see alcohol moving that way. A lot of the products that are high theft items. So if you go in, post-COVID particularly, you go into a Walgreens or a CVS and everything's locked up and you got to try to find somebody. Those high theft items, age-restricted items that were into that space.
That's really interesting. And have you and your business partner, Lawrence, had to decide, are you going to stick to ammo for the long run? Is that you're dominating that and really you're being the monopoly in the market? Because ammo and the way you guys are selling it, it's never been done before. So how are you guys going about those business decisions?
Yeah, right now we're focused on ammo. It's very easy for us to transition that model into another product, just in terms of suppliers. We want to get this one really fine-tuned before I start diversifying.
And how, I know, especially being me, I'm originally from San Francisco, I see a lot of theft going on in SF now, unfortunately. Do you see something like that potentially happening where these things are being stolen, or how do you guys defend or prevent that from happening?
Oh, theft of the machines? Mm-hmm. They better bring a forklift and some large heavy equipment. Now, these machines weigh, with the ammo inside them, they weigh in excess of 1,500 pounds. So it's not like a small ATM where people are smashing, grabbing ATMs and dragging them out with a chain. They're pretty secure in terms of lift. Plus where they're positioned in the store. So they're not outside the store like a red box or something like that. So they're locked up during the day. There's people around them all the time. So we feel pretty good. And no kind of smash and grab on these guys.
I think of...
I was going to try to figure out a way, I'm sure. But
sure. Some people are creative enough, but I think like with ATM robberies and that kind of thing, it's what comes to my head. I don't know how much the ATM machine weighs compared to the machines you guys are building, but that would be the only similarity that I can see.
Yeah. The machines are very secure. The way the locks are set, the way the ammo is stored, it would take somebody a long time to crack one open. But I think the really interesting thing has been just the customer response. You get probably about 80% of the customer response is just thrilled, and they love it, and they're excited. They can't believe it. There's a 20% that are, or I'd say another 10, 15% that are shocked. They're like, I'm buying my eggs and I'm getting my bread, and I'm going to grab some 9mm on the way out or some shotgun. I think that kind of catches them by. So you've got that 5% that's, you can't have ammo. It's being sold inside a grocery store. And I try to remind them, yeah, that's exactly what Walmart does. And it's not. And what people really don't tend to think about when they look at our machines, when you think about selling ammo through a machine, is that the way, in comparison to the way ammo is sold today. So if you walk into any major big box outdoors type store, so your Bass Pros, Cabela's, Shields, those type of stores, academies, it just sits on the shelf. It's sitting there no different than the Granny Smith apples in the grocery store. And it's very easy for someone just to throw a box in a bag and walk out the door. In fact, I was in one, just shopping at some of the competitors up there, and there was a wide open box there on the shelf, and there's not a person in sight. There's not a customer service rep in sight. So that right now, ammo, when you think about it from how it's sold today versus what we're doing, it's a lot more secure at the machine level than how it's sold currently.
So how does it actually work from the tech and the software and the hardware perspective? How does that actually function? And then how did you, as the CEO and main primary partner of this business, how did you go about putting that complex technology, the hardware and the software together for something like this?
Obviously, we have our suppliers that brought to us, our software suppliers, our hardware guys. But the way it's built is it uses facial recognition that's the same as what you would see at with TSA at the airport. That what we do is you have to scan your ID, so it validates your age. So depending on where you are, what state you're in, ages vary. So we just typically, what is rifle and shotgun rounds, or you have to be 18. Pistol rounds, you have to be 21. So we just set all the machines to 21 because states vary. So we wanted to err on the side of caution with the age limit requirement. But you scan an ID, it does a facial recognition on the face, can't hold up a picture or anything like that. It asks you to actually give some motion and change of expression. And then it matches that person's face to the ID and verifies they are who they are. 12-year-old can't steal dad's ID and come use it. And then it simply lifts the ammo out of the machine, drops it in a box after your payment, and you're on your way.
Huh. When I think of that, I think of when you're at the airport and you show your passport, but your passport's 8 years old, and they see, this is really you. Have you guys experienced that kind of thing with the machines, or what do you guys think about that?
We have, and it's got a really high degree of accuracy, within 98%. But wow. Is it possible for someone to have a really old ID if they haven't updated their ID or it's been damaged or something like that? I mean, that's certainly possible, but we have not run into that as of yet.
So now a more relevant question, I think, for our target audience here, for the aspiring speakers and TEDx speakers, you really nailing this retail convenience and this biz ops perspective. And you're taking it out. You're taking the human out of the need for ammo sales, like you order at some McDonald's from a machine, right? It's a very similar kind of thing. How can aspiring speakers and professional speakers and business owners who speak for their business, how can they apply the principle of convenience and automation that you've really gotten here for their own work? Are there anything surprising, any parallels that you wouldn't really expect?
Yeah, when I think about automation and where we're going with some of the AI type of products that are going to come out and features into retail, there's always a little bit of a political push. On one hand, you're eliminating a job if you're bringing in AI. But the bottom line of the world is going that way. It's already going that way in other countries. It's going to continue. It's not going to stop. We want to be involved with being on the forefront of that, using it the right way, applying it to areas that have value. In this case, the way the political climate of ammunition, firearms, things like that, it's highly volatile for access. So this really bridges the gap between on both sides of the fence. We want more control, but we want more accessibility. Our two, which we're obviously very strong 2A supporters. But there's a responsibility to protect Second Amendment. But there's also a responsibility to be a responsible owner of a firearm. We wanted to we felt like this created a model that met both needs from a political side. From an innovation side, it's a little bit different, right? So from an innovation side, there's a book called Crossing the Chasm that talks about this. And when innovative ideas come out, original innovators tend to fall out because maybe the market's not ready for it, the infrastructure is not ready for it. It's the first time it's been done, and you don't see all the pitfalls. And the group after the innovator comes in, and they've seen all the pitfalls, and the market's kind of grown, the technology's caught up. And we saw that in the dot-com bust. So back when the dot-com bust, right, and the internet was going wild, all these great ideas were coming out for websites. But the truth of the matter was the infrastructure, even the broadband then at the time, really wasn't there to support it. And so all those ideas were generating, and those innovators fell away, and a few of them survived. And we think one of them obviously is Amazon. They were just selling books at the time. So you're trying to bridge all that when you're dealing with innovation. How do we stay in front of the innovation so that we see all the landmines and we have enough vision to scale the project when you're early into the industry? But it's already been paved a lot in AI. Amazon stores are popping up, and it's going to happen more and more frequently. So I think the technology's there. People are accustomed to the technology. Like in our case, working with our screens is no different than working on your phone or a tablet. And everybody's already accustomed to that for the most part from an engagement standpoint day to day. So I don't think there's always things you're gonna run into when you're an innovator or you're trying to bring something new to market. And it's just you want to surround yourself with really strong people that help you see those pitfalls and spots that guys like Lawrence and Liddell that help us have the right vision down the road.
You mentioned Lawrence and Liddell, and I think this brings up something I'm super curious about here. How do you go about building a team for such a potentially big endeavor and cutting edge endeavor like the one you guys have chosen to take on?
In my case, I've known some of the guys that we have on our team. I've known them for years now. I've worked with them in other endeavors. What I've always tried to do along the way was when you spot talent, there's an intangible to talent that's overlooked. In fact, I was giving a reference for a gentleman that I used to work with for a recruiter today, and we had this conversation that people oftentimes think, oh, you can't cross industry. We're trying to hire people. We're trying to bring people in. We need someone in the ammo industry, or we need someone in the tech space this way. That's not necessarily true unless you're specifically a forensic accountant, or you're specifically, but when you're talking about just general operations or biz dev or marketing, there's intangibles that you're looking for in leadership qualities and people. And those skill sets are transferable. And when you find those, so when I have met people along the way in my journey, I've maintained relationships with people that I know. I'm like, man, that's a person I'd want on my team, right? I'm gonna stay in touch with them, and making a point to do that. So when the opportunities come, you're like, I have the right person for that role, and they have all the intangibles. The truth is, you could have not any knowledge about ammunition and come in and learn it quickly. It's not complicated, but bringing those intangibles in with someone that's got the skill sets that you're really looking for, that's invaluable. And so some of these people I've worked with in other ventures, and we've just gone from one to another, and I bring them with me.
You're always building your Rolodex.
Yeah, we have one of our staff members, Nicole, and I was like, she doesn't get to leave. She's like invaluable, her skill set. So I said, after this one, we go to the next one, you're coming with. That's how it happens.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
And then for kind of the core concept of this business of bringing the development of technology and the speed with technology, I think it's called Moore's Law, how it's always getting faster and growing faster. You guys looking at predicting, or I guess business planning the next 5-10 years, how do you guys integrate the speed at which this technology is growing with the business plan of the next 5-10 years? How do you go about those kind of decisions?
Those are hard decisions. Technology really has an exponential function to it. So in terms of growth rate, so when you, like in our case, where the technology is now, there's already better technology being built. And so we try to stay on top of that, and we're continue to talk to suppliers and see where we can grow and what the best decision is for our type of products. But there's a level of market adoption. So sometimes even as fast as the technology is growing, the market adoption hasn't taken it yet. And it's a little bit of a balancing act creating that. Another good example of that is, remember when the Google glasses came out and we started, they really didn't adopt well into the market. So those kind of things, you got to look at market adoption as much as you got to look at the technology that's available.
I've also seen how the Apple Vision Pro just got released.
Mm-hmm.
So I've seen some people wear it and then have an overlay of someone, let's say a famous actor or actress's face, overlay on their friend's face. And so they see it like that. Do you see the future going to like eye scanning when you can fake your
Yeah.
face?
Yeah, biometric type scanning where you're doing retinal scans or iris scans has been around for a long time. And if you look around, biometrics just hasn't been. We've seen more integration into the phone as a digital footprint than we have biometrics. And biometrics have been people are doing thumbprints, fingerprints at the gym they were doing thumbprint a long time ago as your biometric entry, and they moved from that to QR code on the phone, which is interesting. But what drove that again was COVID. Oh, now we don't want to touch anything. Will we get to a place where we're using retinal iris scan? Probably. And when you're looking at product out in the field, you're like in our case, these machines we have placed everywhere. Then we've got to consider firmware changes. It's not just software. If we're dealing with software changes, very simple. It's usually the hardware, firmware that's the most costly, adjustment. But I don't know when that will be or how long that'll take. So we just try to stay on the forefront of what's available. And right now, even what we're doing today is relatively simple in terms of that type of technology as you're thinking, but as you're mentioning, but it's still cutting edge right now for the market.
It seems like you're doing something similar to what Elon did with Tesla, where nobody was taking electric vehicles seriously. Then Tesla comes, and then you saw like the Super Bowl commercials last year. It seemed like every big car company was promoting their new electric vehicles, right?
Right.
So how do you go about getting mass market adoption from something that kind of Tesla was at one point so cutting edge, where a lot of people, it doesn't have mass market adoption yet, and they stay away from it? How do you go about building that?
That's a tough one. That's really being able, if you're an entrepreneur and you're trying to Tesla's different, right? Elon has plenty of cash. So you're cash flowing it to drive that scalability, to penetrate to market, to get a market response that allows you to really grow. When you're on that innovative curve is really tough for that entrepreneurial person. So it really comes back to having that financial backing, cash flow, and having your financial team, your investing team really see the long-term vision of where you're going. And so we're really fortunate to have that with our group. We've got a group that sees it. They're like, we don't even care what sales are. We want to produce the next 20 machines. We want to produce the next 30 machines. Don't even worry about how many boxes of ammo you're selling right now. And because we are changing the way people think about buying, how purchasing product. And so that takes time to happen. And it's going to take more time for us. But I think when you look at this particular space, it's really interesting. I meant to do this earlier at the beginning, but one of the things that was really on my mind this week was Lakewood Church, Joel Osteen's church in Houston, and the tragedy that happened there. And when you get into the political climate of firearms, which ammo would fall under, your firearm is nothing but a club without the ammunition. And you see a tragedy like that, it validates where we're going in this particular space. And because while we may not be able to, we won't be able to always prevent somebody that has malintent to go out and do harm, it certainly dissuades them if they've got to scan their ID and there's a facial recognition. Now, we don't do anything with that information. We have to store it legally for so many years, depending on state. But it's just the person's a lot less likely with bad intent that if they're going to go in and scan their ID and do all that. So we see this particular space or products that are age restricted spaces moving there first and growing first, because it takes the fake ID out of the equation, or the cashier at the desk that doesn't check ID at all and just lets them walk. It takes these liabilities out of the equation for the retailer. And so that's a big benefit to the retailer. It's a benefit to the community. And so I think that's where you'll see it move first, and then we'll see it. And so we expect over time, as that grows and they understand what we're doing, that we're not just trying to put ammo out next to the boxes of cereal on the shelf. That's not what this is, that we're actually moving in a direction that benefits the community in the space, then I think we'll start seeing accelerated growth.
You mentioned the liability and that there is without this technology, and this technology being able to actually prevent this kind of liability. I was at an event a few years back, and a woman mentioned this, which was, I didn't really think about vehicles in this way, but she said if you were to quantify the amount of human-caused vehicle deaths and injuries from car accidents,
yes,
it would be classified as a weapon of mass destruction. And I thought,
yeah,
I never really thought about it like that, but I myself have been in a tough car accident. It was my fault, so I understand it. And I do think, in 20 years, people's kids that are born at that time, they say, you actually drove your own car? Wait, really? You had to drive that yourself? That kind of culture shift that looks like it's happening. How do you see, especially you paying attention to how this technology is evolving, how do you see that industry evolving with AI and with technology and hardware of autonomous vehicles, and then truck driving being one of the biggest jobs across the United States? How do you see that evolving from the things you're paying attention to?
Yeah, when you were talking about that, the transit industry was really what first came to my mind. They're already working on that, right? Self-driving trucks, that because you're point A to point B for the most part, they program it in and they go. I know they're working on it. There's a lot of holdups. Mostly the holdups in that space is there's a lot of holdups in that space, but one of them is just the amount of power needed to pull one of those rigs against the current battery capacities, what they can do. And I think there's obviously good people like Elon that are trying to overcome some of those obstacles and revolutionize it. But I do think it's coming. It's just inevitable. I think what people get worried about is really, okay, what's going to do to loss of jobs? What's going to happen there? But if we look back throughout history, the original guys cutting down trees with axes said that when the chainsaw came out. You're not going to need as many lumberjacks out there. We start using chainsaws. Oh, we're not going to need as many. We're going to put taxi drivers out with Uber. But the truth is, industry and markets adapt and adjust, and new opportunities grow. And the new generations, as they're coming up, they're changing. As computers started coming out, we already see robotics and automation entering the medical space. We look at things for accounting. Accounting is going that way. Pretty much, you do it online now. So it's constantly evolving. But that job loss tends to transfer skill sets into other opportunities that then develop. So I've never been afraid of it from an economic standpoint, from a job loss standpoint. I think where we want to be careful is the way we use the technology, and that we're using it the right way to better society, not limit society. So let's not get rid of firearms. Let's not get rid of the Second Amendment. Let's not get rid of ammo. Let's make it safer to purchase for responsible gun ownership. And I think that's the way we got to look at all the industries across the board. We see that with the internet. There's things on the internet, unsafe things on the internet, right? These things are always a tool, and when you put a tool in someone's hands, they can use it either way. And I think we just want to keep focused on using things the right way.
How do you see these trends affecting education? Let's say K through 12.
Oh yeah. Again, I think COVID's exposed some of that. We went to homeschooling type platforms or virtual schooling type platforms, and the statistics on kids that have fallen behind during those years, it's still evolving. I don't know that it's there yet. There's an element of human interaction that we need as humans that we can't lose touch with. As humans, we're not designed to be in a box sitting at a screen forever. We need interactions. I remember just to go back to finish your school question before I start, but I think it will continue that way. We'll see more and more integrated school. I think some of the virtual reality stuff in schools that they're using, I think that's great. Just to be able to give a child a different experience that's that much more real and tangible. I don't think it subdues imagination. I think it encourages imagination because it gives kids a different vision, a different view of something that somebody created for them to view. They can't necessarily all go to the planetarium. We did when we were kids. but now they can, right there in the virtual, they can get that experience. So I think there's real value in it and where we're going. But this AI and technology just requires a degree of discretion, and it requires a degree of responsibility, just like anything else that we do.
I think that's a good point. There's always going to be bad things and bad people doing bad things with the tools that are available. Just about building the systems and the automations and the processes to combat that, like what you're actually doing with your business. How do you go about leveraging speaking, like you on this podcast right here? How do you integrate that into kind of your business growth model?
I'll leave that up to Ladale. No, he sets up the meetings. And these things are great. What a great opportunity, right? 20 years ago, we couldn't do this. This is fantastic. To be able to get the word out and to be able to share it with your audience and to have the opportunity to get that out through our following and as many people as we can through social media. These type of tools are great for business, and it helps give people an understanding about your business and what your mission is and what you're trying to accomplish and why you're doing it. I think we've lost sight a lot of times in business of being able to explain the why of what we're doing. I say, oh, this is what we sell, and it's all about just selling it, and we're making the money, and we're trying to grow a business. But if you can get behind the passion of why you're doing something as an entrepreneur, it really drives you. And trying to explain that and get that across is difficult. I can tell you firsthand with what we're doing, it's very difficult. When people walk in, they say, oh my gosh, ammo is being sold in the grocery store. They're all concerned. Usually once we can have this kind of discussion, then they go, oh, okay, now it makes sense. There's real value in what they're doing. And they're not here just trying to promote gun use everywhere. They're actually trying to solve a problem in the industry that's going to help everybody. We couldn't do that before. And so podcasts like these, like yours, and the way social media is today, it's a real opportunity, I think, for companies to express their real vision and why behind what they do.
I think that what you're saying right there really hits on the point. People want to buy from other people. And someone might see your machines in the stores, but they've never met Grant, and they've never heard the motivation of what you're supporting when you use these machines. So I think it's really interesting that's coming. Do you see that as being something that's almost mass market? I know I was watching a PBD podcast, and he was saying 2028 election will be the first election that mass media won't be the deciding factor, that the mass media, the corporate media, whatever you call it, maybe you saw with Vivek and the way he's promoted his platform, he's been podcasting. It hasn't been, he's done bigger platforms, but his grassroots podcast tour he did, do you see that kind of growing in the future?
Oh, 100%. It's going to continue. We're not going backwards. It's only going forward. I think it will. What you were mentioning about human interaction, getting to know a person and getting that relationship, it's important, and it's not going away. It brought me back to my thought I had earlier. As we were talking, I remember, because I'm going to date myself now, my age, but I remember I was in grad school when I remember the internet was first coming out, and it was Netscape was the browser. That's how old this was. Right? It's a long time ago. And people talking about everybody's just going to shop online. Your retail stores are all going to go away. Everything's going to be online, but it's not. Everything is not. Do we do a lot of it online? Sure. Does it have a trend of growth in a lot of ways? Absolutely. Has the human interaction and face-to-face gone away? No. And I don't think it will. And when you're dealing with things like our particular products that are age restricted, come on, 10-year-old goes up there. Are you 21 to enter this site? Yes. Got dad's credit card? Yes. We still haven't been able to overcome that issue from an online standpoint. So the human interaction it will still remain. That's just who we are by nature. And I will always encourage that. But I think platforms like this and being able to engage an audience and share with them and let them know the vision behind what we're doing and who we are and where we come from and what our backgrounds are. I think that's important. You didn't have that in the 70s, 80s, 90s. You just knew there was somebody up in a building somewhere. That's all there was to that person. That's how you thought about them.
Very different these days, that's for sure. I know we're running short on time here. Is there any last message you would have for potential speakers, aspiring speakers, professional speakers, business owners that are going through the trials you're going through of growing their business and balancing speaking to promote them and their business? Do you have any message for any of those people?
Sure. I think that as business leaders, and speakers, and you're trying to get the important thing is to share best practices. I think the idea of trade secrets are important. Don't get me wrong for your business, but sharing best practices and what's worked for you and how you see the market going or how you see an industry changing is really important. We all benefit from it, and I always enjoy listening to speakers when they're sharing best practices. I think the other thing is to stay genuine and be vulnerable enough with yourself as a business leader to talk about the real vision behind what you're doing and who you are and how you relate to what you're trying to bring into the market and what you're trying to bring to others. Yeah.
Boom, dropping value bombs there. Guys, thank you for listening. We'll wrap it up here. And Grant, is there a place that if someone is getting so much value from you, they're super interested, they want to see your machines in their stores one day, where can they find you?
Yeah, they can go to AmericanRounds.com and just click on the contact us button and we'll get in touch with them. But yeah, AmericanRounds.com. Coming soon to a retailer near you, hopefully.
There you go.
Absolutely. Ryan, I appreciate it.
Thank you, guys. Cheers, y'all.
All right.